All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Can anybody smell the prime rib cooking? Maybe not because we have the door shut, but we have one in the oven that we're going to sample later. So thank you, Katie, for the introduction. Again, my name is Sarah Baker, and I am a livestock extension educator up in Custer County, which is based out of Challis, if you guys are familiar with Central Idaho. And you guys might be wondering why the ag agent, why the livestock educator with all of these lovely FCS educators that actually know what they're doing. Why did they invite me to come talk about beef? And I sort of asked them the same question, why do you want me to come to a cooking show? But they said it's about quick and easy tips. And if you can cook a prime rib and not screw it up, anybody can, Sarah. So that's why I'm here tonight, right? To show you how easy it is to cook prime rib and make it very delicious, okay? I know a little bit about beef. I was raised on a cattle ranch. I'm 6th generation on our family's cattle ranch. And I also got my master's degree in meat science from the University of Idaho. So have a little bit of background on beef. Before we talk about tonight, how we're going to prepare this prime rib, a couple of things we wanted to indicate about beef. A lot of times people shy away from beef because they think it's not healthy. And that's definitely not true. 2 things about beef. Beef can actually be very lean, and it's very nutrient dense. So I don't know if you guys know that there's 29 cuts of beef that qualifies for lean by USDA. In order to qualify for lean, meat has to be less than 10 grams of total fat, less than 5 grams of saturated or the bad fats, and less than 95 milligrams of cholesterol. So there's 29 cuts of beef that actually qualify for lean. Did you guys know that? They learned something new. That's great, okay? Now, maybe prime rib is not one of the lean cuts, but it's very nutrient rich, as is all beef, okay? So we don't always just worry about calories. We're going to talk about nutrients. And when we talk about nutrient density, I'm going to talk about this jerky and this candy bar, okay? If you're going to eat 100 calories, which one should you eat? Probably the beef, because it has a lot of nutrients in it. So each one of these is 100 calories. Actually, only one of the Twixes, not 4 of them, in the king size Twix bar. 100 calories. This has 20 grams of protein. This has 1. So this has a lot of empty calories or empty nutrients. This has a lot. So that's what we talk about when we mean nutrient dense. So beef is packed full of nutrients. Lots of zinc, iron, and protein. Okay? So what we're going to talk about tonight is simple, easy, quick steps to preparing prime rib. And you guys have a handout in your packet that we're going to follow. It says 5 simple steps to preparing the perfect prime rib. So 5 steps we're going to talk about: planning, preparation, cooking, resting, and carving, okay? So the first one's planning. We want to plan ahead. If you're going to cook prime rib for the holidays, you might want to call the store and order in advance in case they get like slammed for orders. You might not just be able to go buy a prime rib the day of that you want it. You also want to plan for how many people you're serving. And so a good rule of thumb that I was taught that I always use, if you have a bone-in roast, which this is a bone-in rib roast, you figure about 1 pound per person. So this roast is approximately 5 pounds. It would feed approximately 5 people. If this was a boneless roast, we figure about ½ pound per person. So a 5 pound boneless roast would serve about 10 people. Okay? So you want to plan for how many you're cooking for. The next thing is preparation. Again, pretty easy for prime rib. We go turn our oven on to 350. There's a lot of recipes out there that may be intimidating. You have to sear it first really high, then you have to turn it down low. This recipe's quick and easy. You go turn your oven on, 350, you're ready to go. You want to put some seasonings on it. What do you put on prime rib? I am pretty easy. I put a little salt. I put a little pepper. Oh, that was the wrong hole. Well, we're going to put a lot of pepper on this prime rib, and then we're going to put some garlic. And just like Katie, I am kind of a lazy cook. I don't like to chop garlic, so I always buy the pre-chopped or minced garlic. And so we're going to put some garlic on there as well. And we just rub that on there. And we could do that with all the surfaces of the prime rib. So again, salt, pepper, and garlic. You don't want to mask that yummy beef flavor. Okay? The next thing you're going to do, roasting pan. If you don't have a roasting pan, get one at the dollar store. It's disposable like this one is. We're going to stick it in with the bones down. That kind of serves as the rack in that roasting pan, or fat side up. Okay? And we don't want to add water to it. We don't need to add any moisture to it. And we don't want to cover it. And that's preparing the roast. We are going to insert an oven-proof thermometer into it. This helps you cook it more evenly. So again, this is an oven-proof digital thermometer. I'm just going to go ahead, insert it into there, make sure it's not touching any fat or any bone. You can turn it on. It'll register what the temperature of the meat is at the top, and you can set it for what temperature you want it to ding at. You put that in the oven. That's how easy it is. Okay, so you cook it. So again, our third step then is cooking it. So you stick it in the oven. Yes, this sets on the outside of the oven. Yeah, sets on the outside of the oven, and then this goes inside the oven. So this just comes out through the door. Okay, good question though. And make sure it's oven proof. There are some digital thermometers or other thermometers that are not oven proof, and you don't want to leave those in the oven. That could not be good. Okay, so we want to cook it. How long do we cook it? It depends what you want your endpoint temperature to be. So in this brochure that you guys have in your handout, how to prepare the perfect prime rib, there is a roasting chart. So we're going to look at our standing rib roast is what we have. We have a 5-pound rib roast, and we want it to be about medium rare to medium. So it's going to tell me I need to cook that for approximately 2 to 2.5 hours. So we got here a little early tonight, and we have a 5-pound roast already in there. Okay. The big thing about cooking your roast is if you want it to be an end point temperature of 140 degrees, you're going to want to take it out when the thermometer registers 130. So 10 degrees less than what you want, because once you take it out of the oven, it's going to continue to cook. Okay, and we recommend a medium rare to medium because you're going to, the longer you cook meat, what happens? It dries out. So muscle is about 70% water, so when you add heat to it, that water goes out. So the longer you cook it, the less juicy, the less flavorful your roast is going to be. So we recommend cooking it to about 140, therefore you would take it out at about 130. And that's what we're going to do tonight, and hopefully it turns out good, so you guys can tell us if we did it right or not, okay? The next thing you do once your roast registers at that 130, if we want to cook it to the endpoint temperature of 140, we'll take it out of the oven. We're going to then tent it with some tin foil. We don't want to wrap it tight because then it will sweat, but we just loosely tent it with some tin foil, and we're going to let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. That's going to allow it to firm up a little bit. We don't want to cut it immediately because it'll release all that good juiciness out of it. So let it rest for 10-15 minutes while you're setting the table or getting your other dishes ready to go. And the very last step is carving, and we don't have our roast done right now, and so I'm not going to do the carving demonstration, but we will show you how to do that when we serve it tonight at 7 or 7:30 when we're sampling. But carving is very easy as well, and there's actually a handout in your packet that we have provided on the proper way to carve your beef roast. Okay, and I guess there's 6 steps, because the last step after you carve it would be to eat it and enjoy. Okay, so that is it. 5 simple, quick, easy tips for preparing the perfect prime rib. A lot of times prime rib is intimidating, but it really shouldn't be, okay, because it's very, very easy to cook. Okay, are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now for this prime rib, you didn't sear it on the outside, but I've heard of what's the pros and cons?
Absolutely. So the pros and cons to searing. I would say the pros is when you sear a piece of meat, any type of roast or even a prime rib, it kind of helps lock in the flavors, all those juices, things like that, because you're kind of creating a hard outer edge on that sear. The downside of searing, in my opinion, is the time it takes. So it's going to take some extra time to sear that on all sides of the roast. If you have a bigger roast, it's a little bit cumbersome and hard to do. And again, it just takes more time. And in my opinion, you don't have to do it. How we're cooking this roast tonight at 350, we just stuck it in just like this. There was no searing, and it's created a nice, not crunchy, but a hard edge on it that's locked in those flavors, just like searing would do with that temperature of 350 in the oven. So a lot of people do that, but you don't have to. Good question though. Anybody else have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Poundage do you recommend? It's like, I don't have a husband and I, but they're like, you don't want it to be pound roast because it won't be good.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you know, it totally depends. Again, if it's a bone-in, we recommend about 1 pound per person. So if there's 2 of you, a 2-pound roast. A lot of times the butcher might not want to cut them that small because it's kind of hard to do that. But yeah, maybe a 3 or 4 pound roast, and then you can have some leftovers and have some really yummy sandwiches or things like that that you can use the next following days. Okay? Does that answer your question? All right, any other questions about prime rib?